This is Lady Anne, owner of Epiphenomenal Radio and hostess of the Caravan Library of Lore, and I support Tessa. As an experiencer myself, I have filed my own reports with them, and the professionalism and heart they have shown my case goes above and beyond. If you have had an experience, I cannot recommend Tessa enough.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston Zeddemore from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Brian Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. But you can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. Good luck, have fun, and keep it busted.
Good evening. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. Tessa is a UFO, paranormal, and paracryptid investigation association. We investigate everything belonging to the global phenomenon linked to highly strange and unexplained experiences. We also connect experiencers with other experiencers, creating a safe, positive environment to engage and discuss this phenomenon without judgment, criticism, or retribution. From the land of the white rolling sands on the southeasterly tip of Georgian Bay, to all of you listening around the world, as we simulcast live on KBNL Radio, we salute you. If you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, go to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be instantly notified when we are live, not only for these episodes, but every single element Tessa has to offer. On our website, tessacan.org, we have something for everyone. We have support for experiencers, data for independent researchers, and places to advertise for professional partners. Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, August the 5th, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacy, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the director of investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Remember to super chat, click the $ next to your name in the comment box. All donations go back into the mission, and thank you. If you're catching this on the replay, please consider becoming a member and unlock bonus content, including behind the scenes and extended footage on new project developments and investigations. Just click the big blue button. It says join. Yeah, kick it. Yeah. Our guest for season 3, episode 26 is Nathaniel Gillis. Nathaniel Gillis is a religious demonologist and author. After living in a haunted house, Nathaniel spent 20 years researching what it was that he encountered. Nathaniel is the founder of Preternatural. I should have asked you how to say this, man. Epiphenomenal philosophy. I'm going to ask you what that is soon. Nathaniel has sought to redefine the nature of haunting phenomenon, ghosts, and high strangeness. High strangeness, I like that, UFO. He's often quoted for his concept of the demonic. Quote, the reason they are playing by different rules is because they are playing a different game, end quote. Tonight, we will discuss his research of the devil, demons, and unclean spirits with a twist that he believes there could be a connection to the implants found in people who have been abducted by aliens or the soul hunter himself, the Molters. So, Nathaniel, put on your tinfoil hat. How are you doing this evening?
Doing good, Ryan. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Right on,
man.
Yeah. Hello, everybody in the chat room. Okay, so your bio is going to take us all around a rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
And, and as much as I want to dive right into the end, I feel like it's best that let's just separate everything. So let's start with the paranormal, and if we can segue to the UFO, and then let's bring it all together, because as we talked before, like this is gonna go pretty interesting. So, I guess it's up to you to tell me, but how did this all start? When was your first? I'm assuming you're an experiencer.
Yes, I started out as an experiencer. My parents moved into a haunted house when I was 8 years old. It was even at the open house itself. Before we purchased the home, I was looking into what would become my room, and I encountered a full-bodied apparition of a 6-year-old girl. I for some reason I had felt that she had snuck in and she was like, belonging to the neighborhood, but no, it was a full-bodied spirit of a girl. And so once we moved into the house, that entity evolved. It mutated into something profoundly malevolent. And so it mutated from just an apparition of a little girl to shadow figures at nighttime. I could hear conversations going on above my head. I could hear them just enough to know they were saying something, but I never got a chance to understand what they were saying. But that was my confrontation with this study. The older I got, the more I realized that the blueprint of demonology I had inherited from my religious system fell apart in my hands. And so it forced me to reconsider some of what I thought I knew and what I was taught in Christianity. And so that's my introduction into the paranormal field.
That is an interesting childhood. And I just remembered, and I apologized to him. I was supposed to do our icebreaker. I skipped the
that was the icebreaker, wasn't it?
It was the icebreaker. So we'll get into. I want to talk more about the apparition, the shadow figures in a second. But before that, let's do this icebreaker. We're doing it a little bit backwards. I am sorry about that. Here we go. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what the icebreaker is, it's brought to you by Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison. You can find him at the Demon Guy Canada. So what he does is it gives me an icebreaker question, which I was supposed to read first, but I was so excited about that bio that I totally forgot what I was doing. So I'm going to read this for the first time, and we're going to go from there. So, if you were a '90s cartoon evil villain, where would your base be? And what would it have inside? And what would your henchman or henchwoman wear as uniforms?
I think where my base would be, I would have my base at a Waffle House.
A Waffle House, okay.
They'll never suspect.
They'll never know. They'll never know.
No. We're all stars around here. Yeah. No. So what would they wear?
What would they wear?
I don't know. I think they'd look like nuns.
That would be suspicious, though. Nuns in a Waffle House?
No, you never know. I mean, it could work. Or just Waffle House aprons, just like they're working there, but secretly there's something going on. You know what I mean?
All right. Sounds good. But if you were a '90s cartoon evil villains, what kind of '90s cartoon villain are you thinking?
The Joker, but like Jim Carrey Joker, right? Okay. So like the funny Joker, not somebody who was like deeply troubled, but the real funny one.
I think wasn't Jim Carrey the Riddler?
Yeah, or the Riddler. That's what it is. The Riddler. Yes, sir. Yeah, I would be that guy totally. Okay, confusing everybody.
All right. Thank you, Timmy. Good question. All right, so let's get back into. Okay, so I'm tracking that haunted house, moved in, open house, all these things happen, apparition, full body. You're seeing this at, she was 6, you were 8, right?
Correct. That's what she looked like.
So what was she wearing?
She had a white linen dress on that looked antiquated. It looked to have been made during the turn of the century. And once we first laid eyes on each other, we both kind of recoiled. And then she shimmied her body all the way the furthest from me to against the wall, actually. So I'm looking at her and she's up against the wall. I never saw her again. But once I moved into that house, that entity, it mutated. What I realized was that entity was just looking for, looking for attention, looking for, permission to be there. But whatever it was, there was a heavy spirit of suicide that went with it. There was a heaviness that would enter my room at nighttime. And whenever it was in my presence, I would instantly go into nightmares. Like if I was asleep, I would go into a nightmare. Like I would literally be having a dream in color. And then when it would manifest in my room, the dream would switch to black and white. And it would consist of the same young man. I don't know if I can, because I did coast to coast, a lot of things I can't talk about, but hopefully I can say it here. A young man took a black 357 Magnum, put it in his mouth, and he pulled the trigger. And then it was like a reel. It would replay. And then I would wake up in a cold sweat, and there would be a stench of like rotting, decomposing organic matter in the room. And it was a very traumatic time of my life. And I think that's what really allowed me to like create an immunity to some of the cases that I've been in, to where I go in there realizing, I'm not afraid of it as much as I used to be. And it's only because of what I went through in that house.
That's interesting. Have you ever done, like in the present or any time since then and now, any history on that location to confirm?
I tried to. I couldn't find anything. Now, the only thing that I can think of is that I don't know if somebody committed suicide there, or if I was feeling their consciousness in the room and it was trying to use its trauma to communicate with me. I don't know. I do know that since then, I have been able to pick up on the spirit of suicide in conversations with people, like just talking at a restaurant, and I could feel it heavily on them. And I've told them. I mean, there was a guy that was a woman. This is very interesting. And if I start to ramble, just tell me to shut up and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I was at a restaurant.
I'm making notes. We're good.
Okay. I was at a restaurant, and there was a lady that I had been working with, her mother and herself, just helping them mature spiritually or whatever, and answering questions about the paranormal. And they were talking about a dream that her mother had about an ex-boyfriend she hadn't seen since school days, like high school. And her mom's like 60 years old. And she said, I don't understand why I had that dream, but he keeps coming up to me. And so instantly I pulled out a napkin, I pulled out a pen, I grabbed my throat, and I said, I'm choking. I said, this man's going to kill himself. He's going to hang himself. And I wrote it down on the piece of paper. I said, I handed it to her. I said, you've got to get a hold of him to stop what he's going to do. And so that night, she called all of her old high school friends to get his phone number. She finally got a hold of him, and he started crying. He said, I had been sick, very sick. I'm broke. I'm almost homeless. He said, I have a rope in my hand. I was going to hang myself tonight. And so what that allowed me to do was realize that what I went through at a young age was not for naught, right? I learned something. I was, something was imparted in me to where I can pick up those spirits easier than others. That's really the only way I can say it.
So the investigator hat came on a little sooner than I thought it would. But did you do you remember anything prior to that house, or is that your earliest memory of being connected?
Correct. That's my earliest. Now, the entity itself would follow me. I mean, I've been like, I would go stay the night at sleepovers, and the entity would walk up the stairs. Like, I'm 8 years old, man. I'm looking in. I would sit and sleep in my friend's room. I'm looking across the hall where he's in bed with his mom. They're asleep at nighttime. And I could hear this entity displacing its physicality, shifting his weight on the stairs. And I'm just sitting there crying because I'm like, oh my God, I can't, it's literally haunting me.
Yeah.
But so since then, the entity itself I've never really felt that particular entity again. I felt suicide before, but that was the most profound haunting and paranormal experience of my lifetime. I'm hoping that remains the most profound. I don't want any more else,
Yeah, but, no. I understand that too. So then, do you believe that? I guess you were born that way. If that's your first experience, you don't remember anything prior to that. You went right into it. You didn't
Right.
ease into that.
No. 0 to
So,
90 real quick.
yeah. So were you born with it? Do you think you were born with this ability?
I believe so. I believe so. I mean, there have been times in my life, it was hard for me to date. I dated a girl in South Carolina, and she was like, I'm going to hang out with a good friend of mine from school. And I remember being on a drive-through at 15 years old, and I just felt something. It was very unique. I was here, but my consciousness was watching her get in his car. I could smell her perfume. I could smell his cologne. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, I said, she's cheating on me. She's going to hook up with this guy. And so I ignored her for 3 or 4 days. Finally, she called me and I busted her. I'm like, listen, I know what you did. And she's crying. She goes, I haven't even told my mom yet. I was going to tell you, I'm sorry. So a lot of this is it's good, but it's bad because, when you're around the paranormal to the point where you can pick up things, it's difficult to date. It's difficult. I mean, it's a lonely road sometimes, I should say.
Oh, I can understand. We don't make a lot of friends in this business.
No,
No, for
mostly.
sure. So, well, you're still here, so that's good.
Yeah.
So, okay, so 8 years old, you're seeing the apparition, nightmares. Did you ever have paralysis when you're sleeping?
No, I didn't.
None of that.
No, thankfully, I was free to move about. But whenever I would wake up from that dream, I always remember just thinking this entity's staring right at me, and I just can't see it. Whenever it would crawl into my room, it would just fill every emptiness in my room. I mean, every crevice, every crack, every void, and it would make me feel like the smallest particle in the universe, like I didn't even matter, like I had no existence compared to it. That's the most powerful haunting I've experienced. And I've done murder cases where they cut up the carpet and we had to get rid of the spirit. But I mean, this was heavy. This was the kind of evil that was almost inhuman in a sense. There was no kind of personality. It had its own morality. And it was very traumatizing as a young person. When I look back at it now, go back in the neighborhood and stuff, I look back and think, you know what? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but maybe that's just because I'm getting used to this phenomenon. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So then at 15, you had what I would think is a remote viewing or astral
Something like
travel,
that.
some sort of astral travel event. Have you ever seen a UFO?
No. Actually, I had my very first dream about an abduction, and I'm working on this because it was disturbing to me. Because I've never had anything like that. I've been a researcher that's been independent, researching both aspects of it. But I just this year I had a dream of, I don't know if it was an abduction, but it was quite complex. I'm still trying to understand it. But there have been points in my life where while I'm talking to somebody, I go in and out of myself and I see things. Like there was that murder case that I did. They had contacted me via PMing me on Facebook. I had no idea there was a murder. I had no idea what the context of the situation was. But I was at dinner and I said, "Why am I walking upstairs to a second floor? And why am I being drawn to a closet?" And the lady says, "Oh my God," she sends me a picture of the closet. She says, "I was drawn to that same closet last night." And that allowed me to go into that house, identify the entity. And what's fascinating is once we did the cleansing, the darkness lifted. Like it was almost like somebody slowly turned the light on in the house. 2 months later, I'm sitting in the same seat I was when I got the private message. And the social worker that is working with the two minors that committed the murder, the social worker told me, she was like, what are you reading? I'm always reading, man. She's like, what are you reading? I tell her and everything. She said, I've heard of you, but I can't tell you how. I said, what do you mean? She said, I just, blah, 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 blah. She gets into some stuff and she's kind of being dodgy. She said, I've heard you're Nathaniel Gillis. You went to a murder case. You cleansed this house. I said, you've got to tell me how you know me. She said, I am the social worker that's been working with the minors in that murder. She said, the night you did the cleansing, the 13-year-old came to the social worker and said, the entity came to my jail cell and told me, I no longer have authority over you. I've got to leave. I got chills. I don't know why it happened like that, but it blew my mind. And so that was just another instance where it happens without my permission. I can't control it, but it's as if my mind, my consciousness is somewhere else while I'm presently in another area.
So that's when you're in your element, I guess. Whenever you've been activated or that ability is being triggered or I guess turned on. So how does your body feel? How do you feel? That's what you're trying to understand. That's probably how you're comprehending. But like, how do you feel in that moment?
I feel like I have access to whole truth. I feel like there's nothing that I can't access at that point. I just recently learned how to do it on command. I had a friend of the family that reached out to me because there was an incubus that was tormenting her youngest daughter. And I said, okay, I said, I'm going to go into a trance mode. And I closed my eyes and I felt myself going into a hallway. And I said, I see your daughter. I said, she's got a ring. I said, she's laying, sleeping. I said, I see her ankle socks that are white underneath sticking out of the blanket. And I said, there's a man to my left. He has a mustache. He stinks and he's a smoker. His name's Dan. Who is he? The mom starts crying. She says, that's my deceased ex-husband. I said, okay. I said, I said, he is a rapist. And I said, I'm not saying this entity is your ex-husband. I said, but this entity is a rapist. I said, matter of fact, your youngest was recently sexually assaulted. I said, she hasn't told you this yet. Now, usually, guys, this is a career killer. If I'm wrong, I'm done. Like, there's no recovering from that. But in that moment, it's like I have access to whole truths, where it's anything that I'm supposed to see, I have access to. And so I told the father, which is the stepfather now, I said, there's going to be a time when your daughter sits down next to you. I said, there's a chair right next. I've never been to their house. I said, there's a chair. It's your chair. It's like a rocking chair. I said, then there's a fireplace. Then there's a couch. And they're like, yes, there is. I said, okay. I said, your wife and your youngest daughter, they're going to sit on the couch. You're going to sit in the chair. And your youngest daughter is going to tell you exactly what happened to her when she was sexually assaulted. I said, and when that entity realizes it no longer has that kind of connection, it no longer has that trauma to manifest in, that authority will leave and it will disappear. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. Exactly word for word. I got chills. It's crazy, man. It ain't me, right? And I'm not like, there's a lot of people in the field that are egocentric. This ain't me, man. But what I know is that they called me and said word for word. That's exactly what happened. We sat her down and said, listen, you know, Jordan Gillis is my middle name. I go by Nathaniel, but do you know Jordan Gillis? And she's like, yeah, okay, this is what he said. Bam, 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 bam. She starts crying. I've been holding it for months now. But yes, I had to go to the doctor. I had to go get a rape kit and all that stuff. So that's how it operates with me. I know it's different for a lot of people, but
this was an entity that.
Yes.
Okay, so she got a rape kit. What was the result of that rape kit?
She was raped. She was raped at a college party. The man drug her into a room and assaulted her. But her trauma. See, these incubi spirits will break our women into bridges and walk the length of their trauma into time. And so what I've learned with dealing not just with incubi spirits, but entities that will sexually assault people, there's something psychological going on with that entity. It's not just that they're patriarchal. It's not. Again, it's fascinating to me. But what I started doing is stepping out of myself and learning how to shut these doors by exposing the ways these entities have been manipulating people.
How did you learn how to do that?
I have no idea.
You just knew.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I just knew. Like I said, whenever I step out of my body, I had access. I could bring things to me. And
there's a phenomenon called hive consciousness. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
So it's this, when you mentioned you went to trans state consciousness, and just somehow that's just like the ether where everyone just pulls things.
Right. I believe that.
I mean, I can count on times where I'm pulling information from things that I should know anything about that I fact checked in the past, and it's like, where is it coming from, right? Just my, So it's weird. It's a weird phenomenon. That you could be channeling. You could be like you are some sort of beacon by the sounds of it. I'm hearing a lot of familiarities with how you're doing it. Really involved. So you mentioned you got into your trance mode. So what is that for you? How did you do that?
The way I've learned to do it, just by I don't know. It's a gift, man. I mean, I usually I close my eyes
Yeah.
and I project my consciousness, and I grew up in church, so that's how they taught me to do it.
Yeah.
But I grew out of that, but the gifting was still there. And so, I close my eyes, I center myself, and it's almost, I start to meditate, and I project my voice, and I start to talk. I start to describe what I see. I mean, like, I don't even have to process it. I don't try to. I'll just, boom, this is what I'm seeing. And I did that in the murder case. I mean, it's a fascinating phenomenon itself, but that's really how I've gained access to that, by tapping into it and focusing on what I'm feeling. Now the way my gifting communicates to me is that I will feel, then I will see, and then I will say. And it's very unique.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So you are, yes, you're channeling, you're connecting, you're using a consciousness psychogenic state. You're activating that. You're enabling yourself to connect, and then this is the result of you connecting with whatever's on the other side.
Right. Yep.
And you're this was a paranormal conversation, but a lot of the terminologies and things that you're using is also common in the ufology community.
Correct.
Right. So are you using these terms because you know this already, that they're connected, or were these always the terms that you've used to describe this?
No, I had different terms for it back in the day. People would say, "Oh my God, Nathaniel, you're a prophet," or that's how they would say that stuff. And I'm not. I don't claim to be a prophet or anything, but once you're using that gift to a point where people call on you and say, "Hey, listen, what's going on?" and they see real results, like it actually happens. But the terminology was prophetic. That's what they said, And then even when I left church, which I don't attend anymore, that's been like 15, 20 years ago, I grew out of that systematic dogma. But the gifting, whatever it was that I had in my youth, it stayed. So I don't know what it is.
Well, that's why I was asking if you had a UFO experience. You said you might have an abduction experience, and you said you're working through it. Are you comfortable? Yeah. Are you comfortable sharing?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's get into that then.
So I was researching. Obviously, I'm researching both phenomena, linking the incubi phenomenon with the succubus, all that stuff. Well, so one night, I just simply asked them. I said, "I don't know who or what you are." I said, "I know what I believe you are, but I'm like, dude, I want an experience. I don't know how to get an experience. I've had an experience in the paranormal field, but I've never had a real experience or even a sighting in the ufology." So I go to sleep and I go into a dream that in the dream, I knew I was meant to remember it. I knew while I was in the dream, this is not just a dream. I've had dreams before. Obviously, we all have. I knew this was more of a message. This was a mechanism. This was a language system that I was being introduced to. And in the dream, I was in a basement, and I was with strangers, and I watched this entity just turn its head and look past this wall, just look at us. And when I looked at it, I was like, I was terrified, just horrified. And I watched as the man in front of me just disappeared. And these people in front of me disappearing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, there's only two more of us before it gets to me. I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to die. Like I thought that I'm going to die when this happens. And when it got to me, I felt the biggest rush I've ever had in my life. It was almost as if they plucked, and I know that's what they do, but they sucked my soul, my consciousness went boom. Next thing I know, I'm in this building, and I see the same people that I just saw in the basement. They're all there. Some of them are lined up, and other people are sitting, and they're working little small puzzles and learning how to operate certain things. There's a human girl there that looks at me, and she's like the moderator.
Right.
And I'm looking at her, and she goes, "Are you all right?" And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "I'm horrified. I'm terrified. What is this?" She goes, "You're going to be okay." When I started getting aggravated with her, there was an elderly man that came over, looked at her, and said, "How is he doing?" It's not upset. I don't know if it was abduction, but it could have been
Well,
terrifying, man.
what is abduction? See, these are the
Right,
archetypes.
right.
When they say abduction, there's that assumption that it's extraterrestrial, but you were hijacked and or physically or mentally. However,
Correct.
and this is what we do with the ultra spectrum, is where we're starting to accept the possibility that it can happen in your mind. Your physical body doesn't leave, but your mind goes. And if you're connected through the ether with your consciousness to tap in for your demonology work, why not travel elsewhere?
Correct.
Instead, why not the opposite way? Go out instead of bringing in. So that is an abduction by if you were
definition.
If you were taken against your will. Were you taken against
Correct.
your will?
Absolutely. And they were getting aggravated with me. The young lady was talking to the elderly man, and the elderly man made eye contact with me. And as he's talking to me, he told me, he said, you need to focus. He said, you need to calm down. He said, I understand you're terrified. He said, but we're here to teach you something. And he said, we can't teach you anything unless you calm down and you focus. Then when he got done with that, he looked up as if there was an observational panel or something, like a surgery room. You know how they look down? There was somebody in the windows up there that I couldn't see that was watching me and my interaction with these two individuals. So then I talked to the older man. Walks away, very calm, like it was very systematic. It was very sterile. It was just methodical. It was very cold, not like physically, but very cold in terms of just no emotion. And then I'm talking to this young lady, and she asked me, she says, how are you doing? And I said, well, I'm terrified. And I said, obviously, I said, you heard about the plague that we have. It came out of nowhere. I'm like, you're hearing about our plague. You know that we're in a plague right now, because I knew I wasn't on Earth. And she said, yes, I understand that. She said, my mother died from something similar to what you're experiencing. Hand to God, dude. So then we're moving on. And I start to kind of get friendly with her. I'm saying, I don't, I'm starting to calm down now. Like, what's going on here? She looked right at me and said, do not be my friend. You are not my friend. Do not fraternize with me. Pay attention. Just like that. And then I was told to look at a wall. I sat down and stared at a wall, and they told me to focus, gather myself. And then when I was calm enough, they turned me around, put me on a seat that wasn't like a seat we have right now. It was like something out of IKEA. It was just round and on the ground. And they told me, they were teaching me how to work with different symbols and putting symbols together. And that was it. I don't want that to be an abduction. But
hold on a second. Can we timeline that? How old were you when this happened?
That just happened this year.
Okay, hold on. There's an experiencer in the chat. I'm not going to name the name, but
I get chills, man.
But if you're listening right now, that sounds very familiar to the case that we investigated for you when you were on board and you were teaching. And I know what those people look like based on her testimony. It's already on her website, and you haven't seen that. So in real time, I know you mentioned a man and a lady, but what were they humanoid? And if so,
humanoid. Yeah.
What did they look like? Give me specific details. Color of clothing, hair.
The girl that I was talking to was young. She had to have been maybe my age, a little bit older. I'm 32. She was maybe 34, if that, maybe even younger. I mean, but she was very, like I said, systematic. Like, we're not friends. Don't try to be my friend. The older man, I don't know if you can see me, but he walked up like this. He walked up and had his hands behind his back. Yeah. And was just looking as he's walking. He was an older white man. He didn't have any facial hair. He had gray hair, but he was like an operator. I mean, it was almost like, systematic and sweeping. Don't talk too much, just operate, do what you're supposed to do. But when we're interacting, he's still looking up into like the nosebleed seats. Right. And that's what terrified me the most, because I'm like, dude, there's someone else here watching me. I never got to see them though.
So what about the female? What does she look like?
She had brown hair.
Okay. Long hair, short hair?
She had about down to her shoulders.
What color clothing? It's okay if you don't remember. It's just I'm just trying to see if you've seen the same thing. That's all.
Okay. I can't remember the clothing, but I do remember that it was all one. Like it was literally like a leotard. It was very unique. It was very strange stuff. But that's what I couldn't figure out either, because I'm like you're clearly a humanoid. You're clearly a girl. Like why are you why are you dressed like this? But I don't want that to be an abduction, but I'm pretty sure it was.
Well, I'm not saying that it is. I'm just I'm wondering if I have the picture of the case. So this is the case that I'm thinking of here. So let me show you. And this is available on our website, so tessacan.org. That's why it's here. It's always ready and available. But if I have pictures of these symbols in real time, I want to know if you've seen the same symbols, because this event that was described, it's all too familiar to this case, and I've worked with this girl for many years, trying to make sense of what it was. And here's the thing: is she mentioned that she was on with many people.
Yeah.
And so the curiosity in me is trying to see if you may have been one of them same people.
Oh my God, that would blow my mind.
And then, okay, so it's this case here, I believe. I'm just waiting for the symbols to pop up. Yeah, so does these symbols look familiar at all? Can you see that?
Yeah, the one on the right. Or
let's see if I can make this any bigger here. Let's see if I can make it bigger.
Okay.
This is why I like this. This is a live investigation, guys.
Yeah, man, this is getting good. They don't look. Oh, there we are. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. All right. This one right here, the right by the A, that little square, or the triangle.
Okay.
Now, what they were trying to do is very strange. The symbols themselves were like technology. Like they had me. Okay. One of the things was that they had two symbols put together, like physical symbols, and they were teaching me how to put both of them together, and then I would put them together and I'd put them down and all that stuff. Look at these pictures, man. These drawings are fascinating. Something like that. Yeah.
Have you seen this? Have you seen this before?
Yeah, that's okay. That's pretty much that looks a lot like her, but she was very it was so weird because you could tell she wanted to talk. She could have had a great conversation, but it was like she just
did she give you a name?
No name at all. I wish.
So it's quite possible you had a similar experience as this experiencer has. You've seen, possibly you've seen the same race or same species.
Something, yeah.
This one was given a name by the experiencer. I'm not going to give that to you because I don't.
Okay.
Do you remember any mazes at all? Any?
Oh, no, I don't. No.
Okay. And what about, so here's the chair that she had described.
Okay. Mine was, they had a table. It was very low. And this, literally, it was like a round chair that just, with no armrest or anything, no back to it, that we all sat on. And there were people freaking out during this episode. There were people having nervous breakdowns in front of me. That's what was wild. There was one guy that was he was screaming, like he was traumatized, terrified. What is this? What are you doing to me? And all that stuff. And so I'm watching it, and I was equally as afraid, but I wasn't as traumatized as he was. Like he was really, really, really going through it at the time.
Mm-hmm. So all right, so Lisa, she did pop up. Hi, Lisa. So Lisa, this is you guys should connect to each other somehow. Find Nathan, Lisa. Find Nathan. What's your your email? What's your website?
Let's go with my email. My email is mjgillis
Yeah.
at yahoo.com.
Okay.
mjgillis@yahoo.com.
Okay. So you should connect and talk to him because I'm very similar. This is a very similar encounter.
Yeah.
So I can't diagnose because we don't know, right?
Right.
And as much as you like, I mean, you don't want to call it an abduction because
I'm trying my best not to.
the reality of it, but you were taken on board on some sort, and all these things are happening to you. And now we have corroborating evidence because I know I did all that investigation 2 years ago, prior to us having that conversation. So there's a pattern here.
Right.
So you're definitely connected. So before we get into like what the science part, the ultraspectrum part, which I think I'll say, if I can, I'll save that for the second half.
Okay.
You mentioned something earlier. You were afraid to die and thing in that one of those experiences that you were having, and that triggered a memory or an idea. And do you remember, like, if you had a near-death experience at all, especially before the age of 8? When you had this. You were, at a young age, near nothing, no freak accident or something, comas, nothing.
No, man. The only experience that I have, the earliest experience I had was when I was 8, and that was the full-body apparition. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm trying to understand how it's all connected, and through the experiencer, because you're experiencing multiple phenomenons throughout your life. Mm-hmm. But that through the propaganda and through media and stuff, they are investigated and separated.
Correct.
Differently, mm-hmm. But you as the experiencer experience them all. So as you've lived through your life, do you think that they're all connected?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, and that was shortly after that experience. In terms of that dream I had, I started stepping into new insights in my research that I possibly received during that experience. I don't know, but I do believe these things are pulling souls out of bodies. I believe that's a big part of the abduction phenomenon, and that's pretty much what happened to me. It was like I'm sleeping. It's the same thing with Betty Luca, where they'll come out, they'll peel your consciousness out of your body, and they'll abduct the soul. That's what I received out of that experience. And that pushed me into a direction where it's really interesting.
Okay. So let's get into. Okay. So
I know I dropped something pretty heavy, dude. I didn't mean to.
No. This is good. I'm also timelining. I'm listening. I'm paying attention, but I'm also I'm investigating, right? So after I'm trying to understand. So after 15. What else happened? You're 32. So what happened between 15 and 32? Any other experiences?
Different experiences with angels, or whatever we would call an angel. I had a good friend of mine who had sugar diabetes, and they had to amputate his leg. And this is nuts. So we go. My dad's a pastor, and so this happened about 12 years ago. So we go to the hospital, and I'm talking to him, and he's crying. Like, he's like, man, he goes, my leg hurts so bad. He goes, I tried to get out of my bed today, and I forgot there's no leg there, and I fell and all this stuff. And I told him, I said, there's an angel that's going to come to you. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel anything. It wasn't like, in the Pentecostal, they're like, okay, you felt God, you felt anointing, you felt something. I didn't feel anything. I just said it. I just, like I said, I had access to information. 2 weeks later, he calls my dad and I back into the hospital room, and he says, I had a dream. And he said, in this dream, I was walking on a beach, and he said it was a beautiful beach, white sand. There was crystal clear water. And he said there were rocks that were coming up out of the sand, and they were cutting my leg. He said, finally, I fell on the ground. I was crying. And he said, I didn't understand it. I couldn't walk, and I was just it was painful. And he said, and this gets into apparitions. He said, I turned to see a figure all in white. He had a white robe. He rode a white horse, He galloped up to me. He got off the horse. He said, I could not see him from the shoulders up. I could only look my head up and see just a little bit up, you know, his legs, his torso, that much. He said, but he picked me up and he told me, Derek, I'm going to take you to a better place. And then he said, he turned around and he began to walk me out into the crystal clear water.
He calls you Derek? Where did Derek come from?
No, his name was Derek, the young man. Yeah.
Okay.
2 weeks later on the day, we got a phone call that Derek died.
Okay.
So what does that mean? I don't know, honestly. I'll tell you what it really points to is that this entity was somehow related to the UFO abduction phenomenon. It has everything to do with, right, if you're looking for behavioral patterns and apparitions, you know, I couldn't see. He could only see enough of them. And other than that, he couldn't see anything. It was just, you know, I'm taking you to a better place. What that points to me is that it's survival of consciousness, right? It's very unique.
So let's break it down. You mentioned a bunch of key archetypes, and I think we can kind of walk this through and be a little bit of an educational session. So what is, in your definition, what is paranormal?
It's future natural. It's not natural to us now because we're behind in time and we're still trying to figure this phenomenon out. But the paranormal, in the classical definition, obviously, is anything that doesn't fit into our reality. It might fit into our reality. We're just not aware of it. So it's according to our perception.
What is a UFO?
I think we're dealing with souls. I think we're dealing with deceased ancestors that have evolved according to their ways and their consciousness. I also believe that, and we're going to get a little bit in my research real quick, that in antiquity, they learned how to merge consciousness with metal. They did that in liturgy. They did that in necromancy. They did that by taking this deceased consciousness of an ancestor, creating an idol out of it, and the consciousness would possess the idol. And I also, I mean, even with your teraphim, teraphim was a ritual of necromancy where an individual would go out and find a deceased person who was recently buried, take a piece of metal, hello implant, carve the name of an unclean spirit. In the Hebrew, it's tumaruah. It's a ghost, it's consciousness. Carve the name of that individual on it and then implant it into the mouth of the cadaver. The consciousness of that ghost would then use that metal to inhabit that body. I also believe that's why we have a great percentage of experiencers that when they get onto the craft, they believe the craft itself is alive. I think that's what they've learned to do, and I think that's a lot of times that's what we would consider technology.
So that's where the alien implant is connected, because it's
alive.
So it's alive, right. and that is activating us.
Yes. Yeah, your experiencers, a lot of them will say that before the experience actually happens, they'll start seeing through the eyes of the ship coming to them. So there is, and I'm going to say this loosely, but it's not, and I'm not saying in terms of demonic possession, but there is a commandeering of consciousness that occurs. In the book Beyond UFOs, there was a 10-year-old, like I said, the same thing happened to him, where he's getting ready for bed and he starts to feel the atmosphere change. Instantaneously, he's seeing through their eyes as they approach his house from the west. Now, if he's seeing through their eyes, who's seeing through his? What they did, in my mind, according to my research, is trigger that implant, boom, and created a unified stream of consciousness. And I think they've been doing that. And that tells us something that's very alarming. If they've had that technology, it first originated with the belief that we have an afterlife, that the soul exists outside of the body. And I'll stop there, but it's fascinating stuff.
Well, this is the thing, right? With all this, it all has to be connected. It all has to make sense. And trying to make sense of all of it, it's one thing to, because that's the thing. If we either have to debunk all of it, or it all. So it either none of it exists or all of it exists. So if all of it exists, if the souls are able to be transferred, correct. Not only are we having ourselves abducted, what you're talking about here, what you're suggesting, is also a hijack. We are being
a hijack, absolutely.
So does that lead into demonic possession?
Okay, so let's look at what possession was according to history.
Okay.
When what happened with me, and I'll say this, what happened to me with religion in terms of demonology was that I realized that what we're dealing with doesn't fit in their blueprint. And
Yeah.
so that's when I had to expand my understanding of demonology. And so in biblical antiquity and Mesopotamia, we did not have horns and hooves. What we have is a systematic belief that demonized consciousness.
Yeah.
In Numbers 19 and 11, which is the exorcistic rite that the Catholics employ, it was never meant to castigate a fallen angel. It was designed, it was called the open vessel law. This is very interesting. It was designed in the event that someone goes into a house or a store or a restaurant and comes in contact with a corpse. And so they have what's called corpse pollution. And so if you're polluted by a corpse, you would have to go to the priest and they would give you holy water. It's baptism. And so what happened in Catholicism is they based the legitimacy. This is a very key point. They based the legitimacy of their rite on the rate of success. It works. And not on the reason for it. The reason it works is because we're dealing with dead people who have commandeered the consciousness of people, right? Strangers, and step in and step out. So when I say that's possession, I don't want to imply that we're talking about fallen angels. I want to say that we're dealing with dead people in terms of disincarnate consciousness. There we go. I got it out.
No, that's good. This is great. This is great. So, okay.
It's a key point because we're going to dive into some really good stuff here.
Okay, so are aliens angels?
We got to define angels.
Okay, let's define angels.
Okay, so prior to the Hebrew religion incorporating the word malachim into their religion, malachim meant deceased ancestor. That's why the generic term angel is just a messenger. Why? Because these apparitions of deceased ancestors would come to people and give them messages, give them omens, give them words of advice and guidance. Now, and then the Hebrews in their theology, they incorporated it into their theology and their folklore and said these are deity, they're divine. Now, what's fascinating about this is also referred to in the New Testament. When Peter's family thought that Peter had died, Apostle Peter, they thought he had died. And next thing they know, Peter, who's still alive, knocks on the door. They make a profound analogy, that reference here. They say it must be Peter's angel. No, right? What they're thinking of is that's his ghost. That's an apparition of him. And so when we're dealing with these terms, they're heavily loaded questions because we're dealing with a lot of these, dogmatic theologies. But are they angels? I would believe they are in terms of ancestors who died. Are they demons? Well, I would say they're disincarnate consciousness that was demonized in history, right? So I have to be very, very articulate with what I'm talking about. Hey, Angela.
Yeah, sorry. She's a member.
No,
So a member popped up, so I just want to make sure she showed up. So I didn't want to interrupt you. Hi, Angela. Thank you for joining us. Jesus, I love it. Okay, so we're no longer a host. We're having a conversation now.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'm tracking that. So it's possible, like, okay, what is an alien then? Define an alien for me then.
Okay, there's nothing more alien to the human race than the afterlife. That is what I believe they are. They, again, I don't believe in the ET hypothesis. I believe that the realm that they're pulling our souls into, not our bodies, but our souls, is the realm of the afterlife. That's why these entities, when they manifest, they'll manifest according to our belief systems, but their true appearance, I believe, they're apparitional, they're translucent. They're just, these entities that have the ability to materialize, they can come in and out of existence at will. These are the same beings that I encountered in hauntology. When you go into a house and you see a wispy form that can solidify and then fade away. Now in history, demonologists believe that these entities would manifest by coagulating moisture in the air. That's how far my field of demonology is behind. These guys are bad dudes back in the day, but that's what they believe. They believe these entities could take the moisture out of the air, put it together, solidify into an image of themselves. So what we need to be looking at again is that even in antiquity, we had consciousness that had no form, no true form. And so then it would inhabit what's called a social skin. the exterior soul. So what we're witnessing and encountering with these abductions, it's both software and hardware.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, see, for me, like there's the extraterrestrial phenomenon that they're not of this planet. Then there's the interdimensional, meaning they're within this, and then the infra, which is like all over the place, dimensional. So it makes sense. Like I don't think it matters where they come from.
We're just hypothesizing. I know.
I think what we need to acknowledge is that there's this ability for some higher power or increased power to be able to connect machine to machine, because we are machines. We are, hardware and software. The software would be the brain, and so the problem that I have is, where's the human element? Is it possible that we are doing this? And where does how well can the skeptics and the government, let's say, hide behind the mental health aspect?
They can gaslight us, but then again, I believe that even ufologists gaslight abductees and experiencers. They really do. They'll say things like these aren't a threat, like these entities aren't a threat. I mean, my God, when they're pulling a soul out of a 10-year-old boy, and it takes that 10-year-old boy 15 years to realize he was sexually traumatized, has to go to a therapist because he wanted to commit suicide, has no idea why. That's a threat. That's a threat. Now, what we need to realize, guys, is this is very interesting, that they're pulling our souls out of our bodies. Betty Luca, this is fascinating. Is this okay?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Betty
Keep
Luca,
going.
dude. Bob and Betty Luca's case was profound. Thank God for Ray Fowler and all of his work. Bob Luca wakes up in the middle of the night and he leans over to see his wife's soul being peeled out of her body. Now, oh man, this is blowing my mind. I love it. She remembers it. Her body, her brain, her eyes, her ears are in bed next to Bob. She's somewhere else. Her mind is thinking without the brain. Her eyes are seeing without her eyes. Her ears are hearing without her ears. Now, here's what it really points to. They know, not only do they have technology to pull the soul out of the body, but they have the ability to keep the body alive as a corpse almost, where the soul's out and the body itself is still being inhabited by something. It's alive. This is a behavioral pattern that we see in the incubi phenomenon. This is where we get to be investigating all this stuff. It's a behavioral pattern that they've been doing for millennia. Matter of fact, when you go into the witch era literature in the medieval period, we have cases where the witch would be abducted out of her bed by the demons, right? And then the husband would look over and there would be a duplicate of her laying next to him so that he wouldn't know where his wife was. That's in the medieval period. So they've been doing this stuff for millennia. And we're just now starting to realize that we have a data sample worthy of looking at.
So we got to get to commercial break in a few seconds, but I'm going to ask, I'll halt it for a little bit. I'm going to ask the $1 million question, because we can speculate on the how,
right?
But what's important to me is the why. So this is happening. Why are they doing this? Who cares who it is? Who cares how it happens? I want to know why.
Okay, I believe, and we're going to get into the missing fetus syndrome, and we're going to tie it all together next session. But I believe that they're using us to self-replicate their species. They're impregnating women with babies, taking the baby out. I have evidence that they're actually killing the baby to transfer the consciousness from the corpse into a hybrid baby. I went down a very dark path recently in my research because of the stuff we're talking about. Man, I went to Rhode Island for a week. I ate like a king, had to get it out of my system because of the nature of what we're going to talk about in this next session. These are not light and love. I know this is my opinion, but I'll shut up.
No, you don't. You're the guest. You talk.
Oh no, dude. I always ramble though. I feel like I'm rambling. I'm like crap, but
no, you're good.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So then let's pause. Okay. So we'll
Okay.
continue. So
Okay.
let me just put on my host hat here again and just get back to this. So we're going to pause right here, but we'll be back after a message from our professional partners. Remember that also, if you're listening to this live on KPNL Radio or future podcasts, head over to youtube.com/The Experiencer Support Association so you can actually see the video that is going with this audio. And all those pictures we shared earlier that we were talking about, you get to see those. Remember, we are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we will be right back.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're alone in the universe.
My mission is to assist and help those experiencing this phenomenon in such a way that they're able to continue and live with it, and also in a way that it can be measured, quantified, and reinforced within today's society, so that way it can be accepted and no longer viewed in a negative way. One thing that I do value in people is the ability to sense and feel when something is right and when something is wrong. That is a natural ability that we all share. Now, when we combine that with the paranormal and ufological abductions or visits, I have the sensation that these abilities are connected. Not everyone can sense, not everyone can feel. However, those who can are typically connected with something that we cannot explain. And part of my research is not just to investigate the experience, but it's also to understand and study the experiencer to find out what they have in common with other experiencers, to try to figure out what the actual makeup is in order to be on that spectrum. There's a lot of it happening all over the world, and I do not know of any other study that is focusing on the individuals as people, only the phenomenon.
All right, welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. If you're enjoying this episode so far, please consider becoming a member of our channel or send us a super chat. Your membership will get you bonus content like exclusive videos, and it will help us reach our goal of launching our training center, which is Interstellar, the Academy of Ufology and Paranormal Studies. Also, if you've ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to tessacan.org/reporting system. The more reports we get, the more we will understand the phenomenon and how it affects our people. Let the others be that example that has already reported that proves that we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. All right. That was intense. How was that? How was your break?
I loved it, man. I loved it, brother. We're going to get into some very, very creepy stuff. And I'm having a blast, man. I'm having a blast.
Cool, man. No, you're excited. You're informed. You're getting me all hyped up. I'm loving this.
Yeah,
So before we get into that, I just want to shout out to Angela, because you're the only member in tonight. So thank you so much for joining us. And hello everybody else. Lisa, Moonlight, I've seen you guys up there. KPNL Radio. We do have some comment directed towards you, Nathaniel. So I'll read that out loud from. Well, it's okay. Say I do be sweating says. And I'll read this out for our audio listeners later. So while this is so true, I have done a lot of research into the marine spirit because of my work in human trafficking. This is so true. And she continues to say, or he or she, the marine spirit can overtake and keep a human alive when they are taken and transported.
It's terrifying. Yeah.
Awesome stuff, Nathaniel. Really eye-opening. And
thank you.
Scarborough Sasquatch Station says, interesting stuff, folks. So perfect. Everybody's having a great time.
Good.
So I'm going to leave this to you because you keep saying we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it, and I'm not quite confident in that we're going to get into. Like, I think you're thinking of something else different than what I am.
That's fine.
I'm going to let you lead this one. So where are we going? What's next?
So in antiquity, we experienced these creatures as soul hunters. That's what they were known as.
Okay.
Yahweh, the God of the Bible, in Ezekiel 13, he describes their behavioral pattern. And according to history, we didn't know that. We had experiences, but we thought we were dealing with horns and hooves. We didn't realize we're dealing with what we're dealing with now. But soul hunters in Ezekiel 13, Yahweh says that there are those that hunt the souls of men to make them fly. And he says that it's a serious issue because these entities were abducting not just the bodies, but they would induce their victims into a sleep state. Hello, UFO abduction. And then they would pull their soul out of their body. Now, in this passage, Yahweh mentions something that has always grieved me deeply. He describes what I call the currency of consciousness. He implies that these entities are necromancers. He simply says that those who should die live, and those who should live die. He's implying that this species is apocalyptic in the sense that the only way it can self-replicate is by killing people. Just gonna throw that out there. Won't hang out in that area. But dealing with this ability to pull consciousness out of the body, we need to realize that there are a lot of scoop marks and a lot of skin conditions that occur with experiencers that happen to the soul first and manifest on the skin second. I had a gentleman that listened to one of my shows I did last year, and he reached out to me because I was dealing with scarifications and how these incubi spirits would carve symbols underneath the eyelids of their victims and stuff. And he got a hold of me and he's like, man, he goes, what you're describing sounds like what my father went through. I said, okay, tell me about your father. He said, my father was a renowned remote viewer. And he's sending me pictures of his father's chest. This is unbelievable. He said, my father would do his sessions, and he would go downstairs after a session and he would give just different readings to celebrities and politicians locally. And he said there was one night when my father did his thing, it's the same routine. He said, but next thing I know, he said, my father is stumbling down the stairs. He's pale, white as a ghost. He's inconsolable, and he's holding his chest. His father has a coronary. He has a heart attack. When they get him to the hospital, they got his blood pressure down, his temperature all out. They got him fixed up with happy pills. He asks his dad, he said, Dad, what happened to you? He said, son, he said, I went into my trance and I encountered my guides. He said, but when I got to where I was, it was a ship. There were entities that they flanked me right and left. I realized very quickly that I'm not supposed to be where I was. These were other entities than my guides. He said, when they realized that I knew I was in the wrong place, they changed their appearances, their apparitions to what they really look like. He said, next thing I know, I'm slammed back in my body. And he said, I'm looking at my chest and they're carving religious amulets into his chest. Okay, they're playing by different rules because they're playing a different game here. Now, let's talk about their amulets. They were interreligious. So forget demonology. We ain't got anything on these entities, because what they did is different than what we're doing as humans, at least embodied. He had Egyptian hieroglyphs that covered his chest. He had the Jewish Star of David, and he had the cross. Now, what concerns me is this. Usually a demonologist, it doesn't matter which religion. If you're a Muslim, you're not going to go into a haunted house and use a Jewish star because you're not interreligious, right? They're using their religious amulets against us in a way that we don't understand yet. I'll move even deeper. When his soul got back into his body, he began to manifest symbols on his chest. Now, in terms of researching and being a profiler, we would know that as a behavioral pattern, something that is, it's a thematic element that it links all of these different manifestations. Betty Luca, when her soul got back into her body, Bob said her body began to demonstrate skin conditions. That's two behavioral patterns. The third one that we need to look back at is the ancient belief of leprosy. See, I grew up in Christianity. I always read the Bible. Oh my God, there's, the leper and all this stuff. I didn't realize until I got into the rabbinic documents that their version of leprosy is what we are considering UFO abduction phenomenon. Their version of leprosy began as a spiritual condition first. It wasn't Hansen's disease. It was a spiritual condition first. And then once you have it on your soul, it manifests on the body. And then they would have to go and get cleansed. So put that aside. What are we thinking here? We're thinking that the soul is not as incorporeal as we once thought it was. They're abducting the soul to do something to it. And then once the soul gets back into the body, it starts manifesting whatever happened to it. Ian Stevenson's work. Ian Stevenson's work with past lives, the death wounds that individuals have, 6-year-olds who say, I remember getting killed. Why? I got shot in the neck or something. And what happened to the body happened to the soul. What happened to the soul happened to the body. And so now they're in a new body, but it manifests on the skin. So we as researchers need to realize that they have a very unhealthy, perhaps, a damning and alarming ability, interest even, to hunt our souls out of our bodies. And that's terrifying to me.
But why? Like why? Like, so they're harvesting us. We're needed. It's energy. It must be a food source. It has to be some sort of whatever these entities. Entity is a proper term, I believe, or for these beings, whether they're physical or spiritual. Spiritual applies to faith. So like the material or non-material, I guess. I don't know what, they're doing something. Their consciousness, they're aware.
Right.
There has to be a need, and these wards or sigils, I guess, right? These amulets, as you mentioned before, are they cursing or are they protecting? Like as an effect. So like if you were to ingest poison, or something that you're allergic to, just say you're allergic to penicillin, and then you go and break into hives. So your body internally, then externally your body's reacting.
Correct.
So in I totally lost my train of thought, but I guess our bodies have to be able to withstand what's happening to the soul. And what's coming to mind to me, and I don't want to, it's the only way I can explain it, and I don't want to use it as an example, but it's the only thing I can think of, is Supernatural.
Right.
The show, they really display the grace, right? When the grace is removed, and they accept it, letting the demons in and out, and how it affects the meat suits and all that other stuff. That's the only way that I can really understand what's happening here. So are these sigils, or these wards that are happening to the body in this experience, as well as you described in other experiences, in your opinion, is this the body reacting positively or negatively? Because we also have the immune system to fight against
Correct.
the same type of virus or disease or whatever we want to call it.
Right. So, I guess the question is, were their amulets defensive or offensive? Were they trying to ward off other spirits? Were they trying to protect that man? I don't believe so at all.
Did they even know what it did? They just made it because of how they were taught. Where did they learn the behavior?
Right. Exactly. That's a profound question, my friend. Right?
Do you have
Because
an answer for
they're
that?
operating. Whatever they're doing, it transcends the microcosm of religion. I mean, like I said, it's interreligious, right? And this gets back to hauntology. We're playing with half a deck of cards here, guys. We're really not, like, we haven't evolved in terms of the phenomenon, because both fields, ufology and demonology, has been so separated. It's saddening, but I mean, let's look at the way they're playing the game. Okay, you have Carmen Snedeker in The Haunting in Connecticut. She takes over a former mortuary. She said that there was the spirit in the house. It was very evil. But the spirit in the house was unable to go into one room in the house because that room had a cross on the door frame. So the entity couldn't move in there. And she thought, you know what? Thank God, right? I'm protected. 2 days later, she gets up. That crucifix is gone. And that entity's in the room. So they're not playing by the rules that we're giving them to play by. They're eclipsing them altogether. Now, what we have to realize, guys, is that these symbols that they're putting on us, they're carving into us. I don't really think it's for us. Like Father S03E26, the Franciscan priest, when he was working with incubi victims, we need to consider birthmarks. That's exactly right. Oh God, this is getting good. I'm getting pumped, brother. But Father S03E26, he was going into cases within an hour of these incubi spirits being present. He was collecting semen samples left by these entities. Okay. He had one victim that had died. He had been working with this woman for years. She didn't die from an attack or anything. She died of old age. But during her autopsy, he was working with physicians. During her autopsy, they peeled back her eyelids, and the entity that had been terrorizing her had carved his symbols underneath her eyelids. Knowing what we know now about how the soul affects the body, is it possible, right, that they were abducting her soul and it was meant? So if that is the case, I don't believe they're marking us.
Yeah, but are they? So here's the thing: is it an internal effect and it's trying to get out, and that's the reaction, or are we putting it on us so we can keep it in?
I think that they're doing that to the soul, and then it's manifesting outside of it. It's manifesting on us as a secondary consequence to what they wrote on us. I think that the data points to that, but again, we're speculating at this point. But these entities were carving their symbols into their victims, and I'm telling you, it's not because we know what the symbols are. No. Anybody that works with the nature of symbols, you're looking at the iceberg effect. It's the simplification of a language. It's definitely not our language, right? It's not our symbol.
I'm really resonating with this because they're like you said, they're playing by different rules because we're playing a different game. Like your quote, like I know that's your quote, man, but I just might say that forever now because
take it.
That makes so much sense. I want to show you something. But I want to kind of preface to it because we're really into it, and with the sigils and the wards and all that other stuff, while we're speculating the use for it. But you mentioned the Star of David earlier as well. Yeah. So what is your opinion on David's father, Solomon, King Solomon?
Well,
because he has sigils and wards and rings.
He had sigils, right?
So let's get into the context of that.
Okay, so Solomon, if you're going into the Kabbalistic texts, which is the more spiritual aspect of Judaism, the mystical aspect, you have these entities that would give mankind certain symbols to operate in. And that's how we would do exorcisms in biblical antiquity in Mesopotamia. We would go carve things into walls. We have a symbol that we hold in the eye of the demoniac. But again, those are their rules that we inherited. Those are their beliefs that we inherited. Like even the ritual of exorcism with cleansing someone of corpse pollution, even our burial rites. We need to think heavily about this. Even our burial rites we got from these entities. It's profound. That's why we have experiences that are being abducted and seeing entities that are in sarcophagi, almost self-mummified. So all of this surrounds the afterlife, and all of it surrounds disembodied consciousness that survives death, and it's interacting with humanity. Now, I want to go in a direction that's very disturbing, and I know it's troubling to me at least. The language and the verbiage that Yahweh uses in Ezekiel 13 implies that what we would consider death, they consider soul trapping. So it's not just I'm peeling the soul out of the body, they were collecting souls,
right,
harvesting them.
Right.
Now, if we're going in that direction, we need to start thinking about abductees in a different way. Perhaps, and this is going to be a mind blower, I'm just going to throw this out there. This is the next step in my research. Perhaps there are people that we think are dead that are not.
Where did they go then? Where are they? Where are they? Where are they hanging out?
With them. This is why. Okay, watch this. That's why Whitley. I'm just throwing out there, but Whitley Strieber in his abduction, he goes out. I think it was in woods, and he sees these entities, and amongst them is a friend that had died. One of his buddies that he knew is dead. He's with them. We cannot highlight that enough. Like the interaction with the deceased during these abductions is profound. I think it's worthy of looking at.
It is interesting. In your opinion, it's kind of it might be a sidebar, but it's slightly related. But just bear with me. In your opinion, Freemasonry, in connection with what we're talking about in King Solomon, is that positive or negative?
I don't know. Whenever I think about that, I think of Crowley. I think of his rituals and his Kabbalistic, his rituals and liturgies. I think of him.
The Golden Dawn and Rosicrucians. That's his considered,
yeah. And he had to do a heck of a lot to get Lamb to manifest. And when Lamb did, right, Lamb had his own morality. He had his own. It was like, and he looked like an alien gray. You know that. But
that's exactly what I'm getting to. So, was that it's appeared with Crowley, he was appeared to be negative because there was this negative creature of scariness about it. But what people aren't really recognizing or realizing through those ancient Hermetic rituals, Freemasonry, and all that other stuff, is there was teachings that allowed that man to manifest and create that event.
Correct.
So regardless, so where did the study and the research go from that? So how does that tie in with what you're saying?
Okay, so again, he got most of his liturgical rites from Eliphas Levi. Eliphas Levi was obviously a Jewish dude. Levi, but he was a Kabbalistic mystic, warlock. Not a warlock in the sense of evil, but I mean he had ancient Kabbalistic rituals, and both Crowley and Eliphas Levi had an enchantment with conjuring angels. Now watch this. We gotta release ourselves from the dogma and the language. Remember what I told you that what they believed angels were, right, in antiquity? That's what he was trying to get in contact with. He's still thinking, I have the ability to manifest and conjure and control angels. Now, when he did manifest these entities, there was something wholly other, WHOLLY, something completely alien to him. And I do believe that's who these entities are. And I'll shut up about that. But yeah, it's a very fascinating interloping element here. But
I don't know who's telling you to stop talking. It's not me, man. Just keep going.
All right.
It's not me. That's it. Yeah, we're not censored here. Everything goes.
But
it's all good.
But he had to perform certain rituals, and they didn't manifest just to anybody. Like he told Jack Parsons, dude, don't mess with these guys. They'll kill you. They don't know you. They know me. Why? Because he was an experienced magician. He knew these entities. He had worked his way up into the hierarchy to where these entities were willing and able to manifest to him. But what we have to realize, guys, is they've manifested to us in the image of gods, mystics, preachers.
Yeah.
Dr. Carla Turner had an abductee. Oh, God. Who, I may have told the story to you. I do so many shows, sometimes I forget what I've already told you. But she had an abductee. She had an abductee who, her and her husband were having issues, and they were not being intimate. She gets abducted. In the abduction, Jesus Christ appears to her.
I was just going to bring that guy up. That's kind of ironic. Keep going.
He holds his hands out to her and says, all seed belongs to me. All seed belongs to me. She doesn't think anything of it. She gets out of the abduction. A month later, she's pregnant. She tells her husband, we have a problem. She said, because I'm expecting a child. She says, but, and this is her wording, this is very important. She said, this child will not be a viable child. It will not be a viable fetus. It's going to die. Okay.
Because they needed the soul.
Thank you. We're about to go there. It's very troubling. I'm telling you, there's a reason I went to Rhode Island, dude. I lost it because when I realized I saw it, I'm going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She tells her,
yeah, keep going, keep going.
She tells her husband, this child is not going to live. How did she know that? Right? Second point to this is that she had a miscarriage. Miscarried the baby they put in her, not the husband. They put in her. And during this session, it was a hypnosis session she was having with Dr. Carla Turner. She's bawling at this point, shaking the chair. Dr. Carla Turner, I don't understand what I'm going to tell you. I don't get it, but I have to get rid of it. It's too heavy. Here's what happened. She says the baby dies. She goes, I'm abducted a second time. And this hybrid baby is placed in my hands. Self-replication. This hybrid baby is in my hands. She said, Dr. Carla Turner, the consciousness of the child I lost in my womb was lodged in that hybrid baby. She said, and they wanted me to hold it. So do I believe that the missing fetus syndrome is purely physical? No. I think they're hatching consciousness out of babies.
But then
it's troubling.
It is troubling, and a lot of this stuff cannot be proved with physical evidence other than the testimonies, the countless testimonies and experience reports. That's why these reports are very important, people. You guys are talking about experiences. Getting it on paper is very important because I can help. We want to prove this definitively. It all helps. But like the why, it's the why. I'm trying to understand the freaking why. Why
it's
this
annoying.
person? Why that? So what did they do? Okay, so they use us.
They use us to self-replicate
to the physical body to replicate themselves, to take the soul.
Dude,
do they take the soul and the baby lives? Is it possible that we could have? Is that? I don't want to be.
I know.
I was just gonna say something very bad, but that was all. I was just gonna say the reason why some people have no souls. You know?
Oh yeah.
You know, is that the reason? Is that where it's coming from? You know.
Dude, let me say this, right? I did Coast to Coast the other day, and it was so funny because sometimes when I get into the literature of the debook phenomenon, it's quite terrifying. People think that the Dybbuk or the debook is just, some guy that went to an antique store and found a wine box and all that stuff. That's not at all what the debook or Dybbuk is. It's not. The Dybbuk is a behavioral pattern within history that we start to see what they've been doing all along. What was happening is that just like the UFO abduction phenomenon, we would have women that are asleep at night. They would be in a dream. They would have the dream that they had intercourse with a former lover or their husband, right? And I've worked with women all across the world that have had this happen to them. So this is fascinating. But in the 16th century, these women would go into a sleep state. They would have intercourse with this entity. And the next day, the consciousness of the entity they had intercourse with had possessed them. Oh my God, this gets wild. So that possession phenomena, it evolved in the 16th century again. It mutated into not just the entity possessing the woman they had intercourse with, but impregnating the woman they had intercourse with. Now, we have cases, documented cases, where these individuals would go to the Kabbalistic exorcist and they had a baby in their womb. The entity that they had intercourse with had impregnated him with himself. And so your exorcists had a profound question. Is this woman possessed by, or is she pregnant with this entity? So they see possession as a form of pregnancy.
Like another cultural show comes to mind. I don't like quoting movies and stuff, but perhaps it's conditioning. But what about the symbolic symbiotic element of the Goa'uld in Stargate?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that kind of reminds me of, is the host.
Yes. The host. And that's why I call them Molters.
Okay.
They're Molters.
You spend a lot of time, you spend a lot of research, and you believe in this so wholeheartedly and passionately.
Yep.
And I'm tracking it. So how do we prove it?
Prove it in terms of what? Like on paper, let's go document.
Yeah, definitively. Remove the speculation, confirm the jig is up. We know what you're doing. We know you know.
Well, they're making sure that we're relying on memory here.
Yeah.
Period. Memory. And what's sad is we don't know if the memories we do remember are ours or theirs.
Yeah.
So let me say this: in the 16th century, like I don't know if I told you this or not, but we had witches that were going to these sabbats and having intercourse with demons. But the interface that these entities were operating in, it would fuzz up, it would fog up, it would, and for a fleeting moment, these women would look around and realize these are not demons. They were having intercourse with metallic rods.
Okay.
Yeah. They were hot. Some of them were hot. Some of them were icy cold. But in their mind, these entities had told them a lie about this abduction. You know, these are corpses or dead people or aliens even, right? Or Jesus. That's what they've been doing all along. But when these women realized, oh my God, this is not what I think is going on, it was some kind of medical device that they were having intercourse with that was pulling them up. Yes, it's the UFO abduction phenomenon. But
so you're saying
really,
that the mind is altered so that way the individual is seeing something else.
Yes.
While like the fuck's sakes, the Matrix. Come on,
dude, it's bad.
Yeah,
we are screwed, bro. And I'm not being a pessimist. I'm just saying.
No.
Not only do they have the ability to do that, I was working with a girl in India, and she was talking to me about this incubus that has been literally grooming her. And I say that loosely, but literally that's what it is doing. It's trying to manipulate her. But it's manifested to her in the image of every lover she's had. Now, here's why they do that: because they're increasing their chances of mating. They know you've been intimate with this individual. I couldn't talk about this on Coast to Coast, but I will with you guys. They increase the probability of having intercourse with you, knowing that you've already had intercourse with the image, right? And so what they'll do is they'll manifest in the image of a husband and then have intercourse. Now, why is this a profound narrative here? Because in the Apocrypha of John, it mentions Genesis 6. So I know a lot of researchers like, L.A. Marcin, all these guys are very focused on the hybrid program and the Nephilim and all that stuff. Let's take a different look at it. In Genesis 6, it says these entities that we're talking about. Yes, it does enter the baby. We're going to talk about that right now. This is fascinating. In Genesis 6, it says that these entities manifested to women in the image of their husbands. It's the UFO abduction phenomenon. And then the Apocrypha of John, it's an extra biblical writing. It gives commentary on what this Genesis 6 story is really telling us. Okay? In the Apocrypha of John, it says that these entities waited until the husband was either dead or he was at work, or he's at, watching a game at the sports bar. He was gone, but they manifested as the husband to the wife. Again, you had intercourse with that husband. You're going to obviously, it increases the possibility of you having intercourse with the entity. So it interfaces with the female victim in the image of someone they've had intercourse with. So watch this. During the act, at the moment of conception, according to history, they stared into the eyes of the female victim and reversed their apparition. Okay. It's very important we understand that, because it gives us insight into what they're trying to do. Their self-replication process. This is
mind control. This is
mind control. It is, dude. I can't say it right now, but this is bad. So at the moment of conception, they will take the seed, they harvested. Usually it was from a deceased person, or and then they'll implant it in the womb. Then they stared into the eyes of the victim and reversed their apparition. Now, I did not understand what game they were playing when they were doing that. It's a behavioral pattern, but why? Here's why. Because in biblical antiquity, they believed that whatever man the woman was focused upon at the moment of conception, she will birth the material image of as a child. Now, this is why they reverse their image, because if they're playing by that rule, that would mean that they're trying to create a baby that looks like the husband, right? But that's not what they did. They were creating a baby that looked like their apparition. So these,
and then they get, then there's the okay. Jesus,
they step into the skin. In my book, The Skin That Crawls, that's why they were called the redefine, deceased ancestors. In my book, The Skin That Crawls, I talk about the hybridization program. It's different than what David Jacobs says. Forget DNA. What they're doing, they're creating children to inhabit. Now, what's important is in Genesis, we have a behavioral pattern of an apocalyptic evil here. We have entities that are living inside the baby. Now they have a skin that looks like their ghost. So they have the software and the hardware together. So that was an interesting thematic element we see throughout history. But again, they see pregnancy as a possession, and they see possession as pregnancy.
Huh. You're just blowing my mind here. This is I'm tracking this. This is interesting.
Dude, we're screwed.
It's uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable because it makes sense.
Yeah.
If we accept all the possibilities, like I said, it's either all real or it's all not. But assuming it's all real, that's fucking wild. And
it's terrifying.
Okay, so what question did I have here?
You're gonna need a beer after this, dude. I could for sure.
I don't drink, but I'll definitely. I'm Canadian, so I'll definitely take on something else. So all right, our MVP, Jesus H. Christ.
Yeah.
With all the, because we're all over the place. In your opinion, and with you being, a religious background as well, pastor and all these other stuff, and you really understand all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. What is he? Or is he a he? Is it a she? Is it what is the purpose of that character?
Okay, so
within the Bible,
he was unique in the sense that if we're going to look at this, is going to blow people's minds. If we look at the theology aspect of it and the oneness of God, when they say that he is the image of the invisible God, right? And then we have that kind of layered template of Jesus being the image, right? He is one because he says, I am my Father. When you've seen me, you've seen my Father. We need to be looking at the way these entities are playing the game. Here's why. Because in Genesis 6, they stepped into their children. They stepped into their offspring. So when you're looking at the offspring, the Son is the Father. The Father is the Son. They're one and the same. Now, what I find fascinating is about Yeshua is it's almost as if Yahweh knew this was happening. And so he decided to do the same thing, right? I'm going to slide into a body. And so when you're looking at the Son, you're also looking in the eyes of the Father who authored him. So it's very interesting. But that's as far as I go to it. But I will say this, that these entities aren't playing by Christianity's rules.
So let's get into Nephilim and Anunnaki and,
Okay.
you know, in the Bible. And then let us see, this is the thing too. So I'll give you a quick little bio for myself. I went down this whole I'm going to be a priest path until I was 15 or so, and I started reading the book. And then and then the one thing that got me, the first question that popped in my head is when I read the passage, you know, let us make man in our image, our likeness. And my question is, who is our, and how many more is our? And because everything that we were taught was singular, right? And so all these other parts. So with that and the Nephilim and everything else, where does that all fit?
So let's go to the Nephilim aspect of it real quick. Excuse me. We need to realize that Genesis 6 was an inherited list of myths. When I say myths, I'm not saying they're lies. It's what in academia they would call it mythopoeic, like myths and poetry. That's the way they kept their liturgy and their legends intact, is by making poetry out of them. But the Genesis 6 narrative was not authored by the Hebrews. They got that storyline from ancient Mesopotamia because it was interreligious. Every religion in Mesopotamia saw these entities, experienced these entities. Now we talk about the Anunnaki, right? The Anunnaki and all that stuff and whatever. We'll get into that. But the Anunnaki is also found in Genesis. They were called Anunnakim, but they were a species, a strain of the species that we're talking about. So what were these entities? They were fallen people who died. And for some reason, they wanted to be re-embodied again in this dimension. That's what the whole narrative says. But they were necromancers. They had their own morality. They had the ability to kill and hunt the souls of men. So when we're reading this, we have to go to the different texts in the Bible. One of them is the Ammonites, and the Ammonites encountered these species when they went in to Canaan, and they called them Zamzummim. This is very interesting. Zamzummim. Zamzummim is not a concrete title. It was a description. Zamzu, that word, sounded like the language these entities communicated to each other in. A buzzing, a chattering, a chirping sound. This is also why Yahweh, in Isaiah, I believe, he's talking about necromancy, which is what these entities are. He says, those who consult the necromancer, who chirp and who buzz and who mutter. So that is the story of the Nephilim. But again, we're dealing with the narrative of entities that have died in this dimension, born in that dimension, and then are reborn again in this dimension. They have a preternatural knowledge of the afterlife. They have technology that can pull your soul out of the body, right? But it's very interesting stuff. But that's what the literature says about the Nephilim.
Okay. Got a question from our member Angela. Do you think angelics or heavenly hosts are incarnated to counter them?
I don't know. I don't think so. Again, guys, we need to realize that we're in a lot of trouble here because they're evolving according to our awareness of them.
Yeah, no, like I'm tracking the trouble too, and I appreciate her bringing in that because this is what I wanted to wrap it up. Because here's the thing: this is experiencer based. This is investigative. We're learning about the phenomenon. We're trying to understand it. All this stuff makes sense, but it's really fucking scary. So,
I know.
Is there any possible way or any recommendations that you could provide or for experiencers who are now listening, who have been listening to this, who may listen to this on the replay and be like, holy crap, that's happening to me. I don't want to leave them in this state of fear.
I understand that.
What kind of let's exercise this demon, if you will, and how do we live with this once we've realized that we may be part of this phenomenon?
We need to dispel some myths here. When I started researching this, my dad was like, "You shouldn't research that. They'll come for you." That's not how they work.
Mm-hmm.
They're interreligious. They go after virgins. They don't care. Like, it's according to their morality. The problem is that we don't know what works. And when we do know what works, we don't know why, because it's inconsistent across the board. Dr. Carla Turner had a lady who was in the middle of an abduction in her room, and she's praying the Lord's Prayer, "Our Father who art in heaven," mid-sentence, "Hallowed be thy," and her eyes roll back in her head, and she's gone. So when I read that, it grieved me, because I realized that we do not yet have enough of data sample to say with certainty what does and doesn't work. What we know is that for some reason they're operating with a license, they're operating with a permissive will, and that's the most disturbing aspect of it. Now, I want to say that you can call on Jesus or call on anybody and the abduction will stop, but it's inconsistent right now. Some people it works.
With positive manifestation, affirmations, and praying. Like, praying is a form of meditation. It's a positive drawing of energy, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you're communicating to someone on the other side, is still creating that positive environment. You pray when you're afraid. You pray when you want something. Everything's positive about praying. Mm-hmm. Is it, if you change your mindset, is that enough to stop this mental hijack?
Dude, I want to say yes. I have to tell what the data suggests. I mean, whatever rules that we thought we were playing by, they're making it a point, making it a point, like emphatic point, that we don't play by those rules. Matter of fact, there are people that were being abducted by Jesus. Not real Jesus, but by Jesus. And people who would say, "You know what, in the name of Jesus," and then they would say, "Okay, here's Jesus." Jesus would come out of the shadows. "Hi, how are you? I'm Jesus." Right? So we need to figure this out, because let's dive in even deeper.
But what's happening there is that it's manifesting, profiling the person, and it's manifesting into, instead of Jesus, to say someone really likes cats. It manifests into a cat, and the cat will lead them down the alleyway, and then all of a sudden it gets scooped up and no one can see them. But they're more likely to follow something that's familiar and positive than them in their true form. So that is true. Like expert level manipulated
oh my God.
The abducted phenomenon.
Yeah, it's Jim Jones. Here, drink the Kool-Aid, right? Drink the Kool-Aid.
Where does the government, we got 10 minutes here, 12 minutes, where does the government play in all this? Do they know? Or are they trying to control it? Are they part of it? Are they trying to help us? Somebody has to know, because government came from religions and all that other stuff. It all formed in evolution. And the truth is passed down.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I will say this, man. I know that I talked to Steve Merrill one time. Steve Merrill told me that he said that he was working with the British government, and the British government told him that their official position was that these are demonic, right? Again, that's what we did the whole show, trying to understand what the definition of demons were, right? We have to make it plain before we start thinking their horns and hooves. But you can't go to war with these entities, because if they have technology to pull your soul out of your body, you're literally talking about somebody who's in a fighter plane 1 second and then gone. Just gone. So I mean, we're dealing with entities that can fly 70,000 feet above the nuclear silo and switch codes on us. Yeah. So we're being invaded by the impossible here.
And how do you discern this from mental health? How can you be so sure? Does this create mental health problems? Does this? Obviously, I can see where. Angela, thank you so much for that sticker. Thank you. I can see where the mental health and trauma and PTSD can be developed after.
Oh my God!
And I can, this makes it really hard. It just makes it really hard, because the academic side, so the ufology, the UFO community, in my opinion, are the people that don't understand faith and consciousness.
They don't. They're materialists, right?
The
Give me the nuts
paranormal
and
people,
bolts.
which is us, we understand it, we get it, but we just can't
Right.
prove it because it's not material. But it
Right.
logically, all this stuff makes sense if we connect it,
Yep.
including them.
Yep.
But their
It's
defense
there.
would be like they're mentally ill. And
Yeah, they gaslight us.
Exactly. So we have a challenge here.
Oh
But
my God.
if we're able to prove this, regardless if we're able to prove it, we fight for that. How do we win this? How do we win this war? How do we live in this life? How do we?
It's mind numbing, dude. I promise you. When I really started to grasp the literature here, starting to look at.
Control, though? I mean, like, do I have control of this hijack?
There we go, dude. The data sample says again, we got to start thinking in terms of a threat. I mean, if China had the ability to take your wife, force her to have intercourse with a stranger down the street without your permission, without even her knowing it, and 10 years later she remembers it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest kind of threat we've ever known.
So that's the technology. They have the ability to do so. Is it? And demonic is a term to describe the negative.
Right. Consciousness.
Positive. So could the same thing not just happen and a positive result come out of it?
I don't know. I've looked at that too.
Information like from prophets. You say you're not a prophet,
Right.
but if you're receiving this information in such the same way and you're doing a positive thing with it, that's the technology.
Yes, it is.
Who are the good guys?
I don't know. I will say this, and this is very cool too. There has to be some kind of a war of consciousness going on, because there's a reason why they're at a distance from us. It's not like they're abducting everybody at once. They're plucking people here and there throughout the country and the world. But but again, every time I think about that and think, man, there's something positive to this. There's not really, if you get down to it. Like, there's people that say, you know what? I was healed in my abduction. Okay, fine. Did he teach you how to heal others? No. Did he teach you how he healed you? No. So it's not as if they're trying to heal humanity. They're not giving us any kind. No, they have the ability to, but they're not. So these entities have they have stacked their deck. And what we have now are two schools of thought. We have your materialists, who are your scientific people, who are parapsychologists. These are the people that will sit there and measure the dimensions of a chessboard without telling you the rules of the game.
Yeah.
We need to know the rules of the game. Forget how big the chessboard is. That's not going to save me. We need to know what the heck is going on.
We also need to know what happens at the end of the game, because that determines how we play it. If we don't know what the end result is, we could be playing the game wrong.
Exactly right. Oh, God, yeah. And they know rules that we don't, right? And so they're manipulating everything.
Well, this totally makes sense. So I'm gonna show you something. You won the lottery here. I don't show this to everybody, but so what do you see when you see this? When we're taking consideration everything that we've discussed tonight.
Oh, that looks to me something very ritualistic. You've got symbols. It looks like a form of technology, but that technology would be something that would be ancient.
Keep going.
Yeah, it's again, it's dealing with consciousness and the physical.
You see any symbols that
yes.
stand out?
Yeah, Star of David. There's a triangle. Yeah, absolutely. We got lightning, electricity. Yeah.
So, if we were to, I guess this is a hijack that has happened to me. There's a time and a place where I was gone, and I come back, and I have been given this. I don't know why. I don't know who. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. That's the summary of it. And every time I have an episode and shows with people, I always like to ask people who are on the ultra spectrum, because I feel like this is not meant for me. This is meant for someone. I'm showing this. And it means something. And every time I show it to someone, it always means things. But I'm getting technology. I'm getting sigils. I didn't think of this being a ward or a sigil until tonight when we started talking about it.
Yeah, so you have the symbols that are interacting with each other.
Some sort of protection, some sort of something.
Yeah.
When the Experiencer Support Association came from that, TESA. This entire part here is actually a seal of Solomon. And then we have the Sumerian symbol of Anu in the middle. These are the 7 liberal arts of science. These black ones here, and these are the 5 elements, including spirit.
They're good.
So when I talk about, that's why I'm getting heated up here by asking those questions. At what point do I get to say no to Angel Radio? And is that positive or is that a negative thing? And if I don't like the fact that that we don't have control of it. I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking on behalf of the experiences, and we're in a freaking rabbit hole here.
Yep, and they're playing by different rules because they're playing a different game, and we're still groping in the darkness, hoping that our eyes adjust to where we can at least see what's in front of us. Definitely.
And he says round 2 next time, more please. So
maybe
we can bring you on again, because I do feel like round 2, because before we actually end it, one thing I wanted to ask you is specifically about what I mentioned before in your bio, the preternatural Epiphenomenal philosophy. Am I saying that word right?
Yeah, you got it.
What is that? And let's talk about that, and then we'll carry that conversation to the end. Maybe we'll go overtime a little bit here.
Okay. So there's a difference between phenomenon and epiphenomenon. Phenomenon is when something happens. Epiphenomenon is when something happens because something happened before. It's the secondary consequence of an event. It's not the event. It's a secondary consequence of the event. In my research and going and doing these investigations and hauntings and stuff, I realized that many investigators are recording the epiphenomenon and saying, that's the haunting. See, that's the haunting. They're not recording the actual phenomenon itself. Imagine this. A man steps into a pool of water and he displaces it. So you're feeling the wake. We're measuring the wake, but we're not measuring the man.
Yeah.
So the problem that both fields have right now is that we have no idea if we're recording the entity or if we're recording the wake that is happening because it's here. So, we're trying to figure out, is this really who I'm recording, or I'm just feeling the waves off of this? Because, that really gets back to, let me say this, that philosophy originated in my youth when I was encountering this entity, and I was asking myself, am I feeling fear because that's what this is? It wants me to feel fear. Or am I feeling fear just because I don't understand it? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what it's about, trying to decipher what we're recording and not just lumping it all together and saying, hey, this is what it is.
Yeah, so like the investigative part for us, the Experiencer Support Association, as the director of investigations, the ultra spectrum concept is, in the classification system, is for me to try to determine whether or not the experiencer is experiencing exactly what they think they've experienced.
Right.
We're not negating the fact that the event has happened.
Right.
We're in no position to say it happened or it didn't happen. We're just trying to make sure that what you think happened is what really happened. And then by doing that, we learn a little bit more about the phenomenon. But what we're also doing is we're studying the people.
Correct.
So when at the beginning of this conversation, I was timelining all your events because I was trying to understand the transition of your life to get to you to where you are now. Because on my research, what I've learned is that ET contact started at a young age. This contact with ET, UFO, but you never mentioned that unless we do some regression.
Right.
Something happened prior to 8, but I really don't think that 8 to have that full body apparition with the research that I've done. I'm willing to bet that there is something further back that you just don't remember.
Correct. There most likely is. Yeah.
And it was because what I'm learning is that it starts with contact. As we go on, we have these paranormal experiences we don't understand, then we develop some sort of psychic ability.
Yeah.
But when we look at these all weird, we don't realize that they're connected, and we forget about the contact experience.
Yeah.
Because perhaps it's them, the other sides, the good ones,
right,
that are activating us or allowing the consciousness to do. For them to go through us, to channel through us. You are being channeled. I am being channeled. There's, that's where this message is coming from, to do good, to counteract the bad. So we're in a bad position, yes, but we are the solution and the purpose of the experience of the research. Once I have enough data as well, just like data, I feel like we could be working together, in the future.
I'd love that. Yeah.
What I want to do is then establish and create an environment where we have more people that have the ability, so that way the abilities together, we can tackle the other side or defend together, because one person can't fight the war.
No.
But there is a war, and we can win our mind if we learn how to take control of our mind or accept the positive to repel the negative. We might be able to, we all could see the light.
Dude, yeah, we have a puncher's, a puncher's shot or whatever it's called. I forget what it is. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. We have a shot at it. Yeah, we have a shot at it. But man, this has been amazing, dude. Thank you for having me on, brother.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We're at the 2-hour mark. I would love to keep going, but let's chat a little bit afterwards. I'll give you some info about Tessa and stuff too, because maybe you can help me with my research too. Because I'm really, I really enjoy this conversation. I'm live here right now, but I really same brain, man. I feel like
same brain, brother.
It's just there's conversations going to happen. Maybe we can help each other with our research.
Heck yeah.
And members, if you disagree, speak now or forever hold your peace, because you guys have that say. So remember, tune in tomorrow at lunchtime, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is my lunchtime raw, off-the-cuff video. Well, I'll digest this video as well and share some things. I do have some stuff that I can share with you guys tomorrow, and then it's the weekend. So thanks for watching, everybody. Keep your eyes in the sky. Thank you so much, Nathaniel.
Not a problem, bud. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Heed the world.
This is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, where together, my friends, we own the night. On our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a place called the SOR Sightlines Report. All of our investigations and people who inquire are turned over to Tessa, the Experiencer Support Association. Ryan Stacy and his crew, what I like about them, they're independent. They're not working for anybody, and they want answers. We want answers for our listeners and people who inquire as well about their experiences. It's a great tandem, and we love being teamed up with Tessa. If you haven't heard of us before, that's okay. We'd love to earn your listening ears. Join us 9:06 Pacific Time, 12:06 a.m. Eastern for 3 hours of live entertainment 7 days a week.
to your regularly scheduled program.
Hello, new YouTube member. Guess what? You've just unlocked bonus content that no one else has seen before, and you get exclusive access to some neat features. If you join the Experiencers Anonymous tier, you've unlocked loyalty badges which will appear next to your name when you join us live during any of our videos. The longer you stay with us, the cooler the badge will be. Also, you get to use these cool custom emojis that we made just for you. You also get to access our private Discord chat where we can communicate all the time privately. All you have to do is email us at admin@tessacan.org. Let us know you want in on the discussion and we will send you the link directly to Discord. This tier also unlocks early access to new videos, behind the scenes and blooper footage, as well as some exclusive videos made just for members. All that for $2.99 Canadian a month. If you join the unclassified tier for $4.99 Canadian, you would get everything I just said, plus extended footage of some of our featured videos, a discount to our merch store, and so much more. If you are a member of the unclassified tier, email us at admin@tessacan.org and let us know, and we will send you a discount code for the Paranormal Hangar. All proceeds go back into the mission and help us create educational content for you and the rest of the world. Thank you for being a part of that journey. There are lots of perks, so make sure you check that out. Also, you can use this tab to share and communicate with Tessa. That's it. Unless you have a better idea. If you do, email us at admin@tessacan.org if you have any requests for videos or bonus perks or anything at all. Really, you are in charge. Don't be afraid to reach out. Thanks for your support, and if you know anyone else who may benefit, please share our channel. The more people we have, the more we can help. And thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky. Say it with me. Say it, Tim.
Heed the world.
Heed the world.